Oh, here, look at that. They're ready. So AIGA Unidos welcomes the amazing people behind Under Consideration, which includes one of my favorites, brand new. Like, check it every day. Awesome. So we have Armin and Bryony Gomez-Palacio. This married duo was born and raised in Mexico and are currently stationed in Bloomington, Indiana, where they provide content to the creative community through books, blogs, a new podcast, check that out, and conferences. So tonight they are going to make you laugh, make you cry, and everything in between. So get excited as we do a deep dive into or as they do a deep dive on how Mexico's DIY ingenuity, hardworking ethic, and underappreciated energy informs their work, Hecho in USA the Mexican way. So you want to take it away?
Ready?
We're good.
Go.
All right.
All right. Setting up.
Welcome, everybody.
Sharing screen. Keynote. Share. This is the new mic check. We don't know if you can hear us. Well, hopefully you can. I guess if not, someone might stop us from continuing this, but we're just going to go for it, all right? Assuming that we're good.
Hola.
Hola.
Buenas noches.
Buenas noches. Así es como sonamos en español, but the rest is going to be in English so that we're inclusive of everyone, as we're being inclusive of... the host has spotlighted your video. All right, good. All right. Just for the record, because this always happens, I'm Armin.
I'm Bryony.
And you can see our handles there for Instagram and Twitter. It is our pleasure to be here for this initiative for AIGA Unidos. AIGA Unidos. It's just so weird to combine the two languages. AIGA Unidos, as we would say in Mexico. So we're going to tell you a little bit about how we are hechos in USA, but the Mexican way, because our professional career has pretty much developed here in the US, but we're born in Mexico. So
let's go back to the beginning. That's at the beginning of the story.
Mm-hmm. And it is a long journey.
So we're going to condense it.
Yeah.
The very basics, as Armin mentioned, we were born and raised in Mexico City. But then I decided to go to Portfolio Center in Atlanta, so we moved.
So we were, just really quickly, we were both in graphic design, studying graphic design in Mexico at different colleges. Brian, as she mentioned, she didn't like hers. I liked mine, it was fine. But then we had been dating for a year when she decided to leave. And then she had been my only girlfriend ever, so I thought I would stick with her because who knew when I would get another one. So Portfolio Center in Atlanta, Georgia.
We were there for a couple of years, and we figured we wanted to work in the U.S. for a little bit before heading back to Mexico. And we loved the idea of going to New York, but we figured that was not a very sensible start, so we instead moved to Chicago.
And just as a quick frame of reference, our time in Atlanta was in 1999 to 2001, so turn of the century, the original .com era. I went to work for a large internet consultancy that went bankrupt, things like that. Brian finished school. As you mentioned, we went to Chicago before New York.
Yeah, we were there for a little bit, then when our visa status basically allowed us to change jobs, we skedaddled to New York pretty much the next day.
At that time in Chicago in the year 2001, we got married. This is the most proof that we have that we're Mexican.
You can question my brother wearing the Scottish kilt in the background, but that's a whole other story.
But yeah, this is our wedding. Mariachis came. We sang.
Chilaquiles at 4 a.m.
Yeah. So this is the most Mexican picture you'll see of us ever, I guess, I think. So we got married. Eventually, we decided to move to New York, where for a while I had the opportunity to work at Pentagram, which was great.
I was working in Wall Street at Addison doing annual reports, a very different pace.
And then we made the decision to have our first kid, which was a decision.
And start Under Consideration kind of in a more formal way. While Armin was at Pentagram, I started working from home. we started to kind of transfer into the freelance work and the office work into actual clients little by little.
And then at Pentagram, they gave me 3 months off at paternity leave. I took 3 months off. It was great. I enjoyed being with the kid. And then as I went back to Pentagram, I realized that I wasn't enjoying being at Pentagram. I really wanted to be at home with this kid that, only pooped and cried, but warmed my heart in some way.
And during that period, also, I didn't take a formal maternity leave. I figured, whatever client work we had going on between the two of us over that period, we would be able to manage. And we did, but it also gave us a really sweet taste of what it could be sooner rather than later.
Yeah, so this is 2007. We were there, we're working from home, living in New York paying to live in New York without really living in New York. And we realized just having a kid in New York is not that much fun. So
it's very expensive.
We picked up and moved to Austin, Texas back in 2009.
And this was based on a Google search, basically.
Yeah, this was before Austin. I mean, by then it was already a well-known city. It's an up-and-coming city, but, we were there a little right as it picked up into what it is today, which is, it's still amazing, but it's gotten a little crazy.
Which is one of the reasons why we moved again. 3 years ago.
Yeah, but we're there in Austin for a while. That's where we sort of established what UnderConsideration is more today, more as what you know it today with the conferences and things like that. But yeah, and what was it, 3.5 years ago? We were like, this. We had another kid, then we got one dog, then another dog, and they were like, this is not quite working out for us as well as it was.
It was the second dog that really did it.
The second dog was just too much. Now we have 4, but that is because we are in a place called Bloomington, Indiana, where we were able to have a bigger house where we can fit 4 dogs, 2 kids, a laser cutter, and other stuff. But yeah, basically it was a way of sort of simplifying our life a little bit.
And minimizing expenses and time in traffic and just like the overall quality of life took a nice little breather.
So we've been here for 3.5 years, and the story that we want to tell starts here in New York back in 2006 when we started Brand New. Brand New started as a spin-off of Speak Up, which was our first blog, and the main gist of it was that it was writing opinions about logo redesigns, which at the time wasn't as popular a sport as it is today.
And we weren't able to go into as much depth as we are doing so today. But it created a nice discussion amongst the industry about, why certain brands were changing and what those changes meant, both within the industry and the technology that was being used, and the repercussions of those rebrands within broader groups.
So Brand New has changed over the years.
Well, it is a branding blog and needs to be rebranded every now and then.
Although the logo stayed the same for like 12 years. But yeah, so it's but the premise has remained the same, that it's all about giving opinions of logo redesigns or new designs of semi-well-known companies, products, or services. This is sort of the latest design of the website, and it's a little bit more comprehensive. We've expanded sort of how much we can cover, mostly because the amount of companies, products, and services promoting their redesigns in a much more
comprehensive way and more active. They're being very proactive about emailing us, sending us tips, either the design firms or even the clients themselves, and reaching out and saying, hey, this is happening. Let's post about it.
So Brand New has grown it's grown to have 2.1 million page views a month, which is crazy. And we put that figure up not to brag, but just to say, like, holy shit, like a blog a blog about logos has that many page views a month. It is kind of crazy.
It's not Hollywood gossip,
Yeah, well, that would be fun to do. And as you can see, it's a very gradual growth, and a lot of it has to do with different. Whenever there's a high profile redesign, that will increase our traffic. So at some point, like you can see the jump in 2009, that was basically just thanks to the Gap redesign. It was a little bit early, like 2007. But anyway, you can see the growth of the site. It's been very organic. We never imagined it would be this big. It has 500,000 unique visitors a month. And the biggest thing is the tips that we get, as Bryony mentioned. That's what fuels brand new. All the people that are out there that if they follow a sports team and that sports team changes their logo, they'll send us a tip like, hey, my sports team changed the logo, look into it.
I mean, whenever we get one of those spikes, a week prior or whatever, you're getting 100 emails a day with a single tip. It's like repeating it. This is happening, this is happening, this is happening. It's quite intense.
Yeah, and from the beginning, whenever someone sent us a tip and we published their tip, we acknowledged them at the bottom of the post, thanks to whoever for the tip. And I think that just created a certain
kinship,
and it began to create that sense of community. That here, we're all in this together. We're all enjoying this as we go along. So, with this growth, what we want to get to deeper into as we go into the presentation. A big part of that story begins here in 2009, which is the lovely 2008 and 9 recession, which what we're going through now sort of makes that pale in comparison, but at the time it was pretty bad.
It was intense. It hit hard to many.
So what happened to us at that, I'm going to make the baby stop crying. If I could only do that with my kids in real life, just have a remote, like, you stop crying now, and mute. But I digress.
Yeah.
So what happened was we had moved from New York to Austin right when that happened.
Yeah.
We had at that point we were the owners of two properties. We had a condo in New York and our house in Austin. That we couldn't sell the condo in New York because of the recession. All of our client work had finished at the same time, just by not by luck, just happened.
So just to put it in perspective, we decided to move basically in January. In April, we were in Texas, and in that period, we wrapped up all of our projects. And because of the recession and design being somewhat expendable, it kind of froze. Everybody was like, the website can actually wait until next year, the logo, the branding, anything, everybody was putting the brakes on projects. So all of a sudden we had these two mortgages, new home, everything, and absolutely zero work in the pipeline.
And up until that point, all of our client work had come from referrals and word of mouth, and we just had to wait for an email to come in saying, like, here's money, you do your thing, and we'll give you that money. And then
no cold calls, no selling ourselves, which we're terrible at.
So when we had no clients, we're like, how do we do this? We have no idea how to go out and get clients. So instead of trying to figure that out, because we knew that we were not going to be good at it, that's when we started the brand new conference, thinking that, well, what has made the blog so successful is its focus on logo identity and branding. So what if we did a conference that just focused on logo identity and branding? We made that decision in 2009. And then we held the first conference in 2010, which meant we put all of the savings that we put it into that first event.
Not only those savings, but we used Eventbrite, which doesn't give you the money of the ticket sales until the day after the event to protect patrons, which is fantastic. But you see that money and you don't have access to it. So we literally did a very sensible thing, which is to max out all of the credit cards we could get our hands on.
What happened was that we had never done an event of this size. We had never, gathered that many speakers together in the same spot at the same time. But one way or another, we pulled it off. The speakers loved it. The sponsors that we were able to get loved it. Attendees loved it. We loved it. We turned a profit, and we're like, oh, cool, we can do this. So for the next 3 years, we did the conference as a one-day conference.
And we started moving away from New York and started to explore other cities. But we eventually got the feedback from people that it would be a lot easier to get time off of work or get the conference covered by work if it was a 2-day event. And so when we went to Chicago for our 5th year, we opted to expand the theater, make it larger so that we could basically grow the amount of people attending, but not increase the ticket price. So that just having the more bodies in the building would cover the expense of having 2 days of travel and everything that comes in.
And what we found out too with that first 2-day event was that doing a 2-day event doing a 1-day event is as hard as doing the 2-day event, because all the hard work is leading up to the event and setting it up. After that, you can do it in a conference for like 5 days straight, because you're all set up and you just wake up and repeat. No, there's more to that, but it was surprisingly easy to do a 2-day when we were a little bit scared that it might be too much. So after that, in Chicago, we were able to get 750 people. Then we did another one in New York, 900 people. Then we went to Nashville, and that attracted 1,000 people. And that's where we went, wow, okay, this is really nice.
And it also felt like the perfect size for us. You'll see why a little bit further ahead. But we figured we would keep it to 1,000, independently of whatever theater we ended up in. If you could fit 2,000 people, great. But we were going to keep it at roughly around 1,000 people.
So that's been our model for the last 4 years, which is 2 days, 1,000 people, very manageable. Bryony and I do everything. On the day of the event, we have volunteers, but leading up to that, we do everything else. So we've done it in Chicago, most recently in Las Vegas, and we've gone back to New York a couple of times, just because New York is New York.
Yeah, we try to go back to New York every couple of years.
And when we first did the conference in 2010,
we started so cute.
Looking at this is the swag for the first year. So very simple, one color jobs on the T-shirt, the tote bag, the program. Everything is off of a vendor's website. Kept it simple because we chose a nice typeface, but that's it.
And we were new to the whole idea of creating this event, and we didn't want to overstretch ourselves either.
The second year, kind of like same thing. Got a little bit more ambitious with the program. We did a transparent paper. Ooh, nice. Then the third year, then we're like, all right, we can start putting in some of the money that we've made into the program. So this is a really nice, like oversized.
11 by 17 kind of thing.
With red stitching and clear foil. So that gave us a little bit. We started to notice that people enjoyed the materials.
And we also realized we wanted to create materials that didn't end up in the trash can at the hotel or at the venue at the end of the day. We wanted to create something that you would want to take home. And, maybe 10 years later, you throw it out. But at least you have a sample of something that gives you joy.
So in 2013, that's when we started experimenting with not customizing, but manually.
Well, we upped the ante of I want it my way versus the vendor's way. And so, for example, we wanted these white paper bags, but we wanted yellow handles. And obviously that doesn't exist anywhere. So we started to create our own yellow handles. And this is where we start to get a little bit creative as to how we go about making the things. And it's also the year that all of our neighbors in Austin discovered the conference, because all of a sudden they would walk their dogs and be like, what the heck is going on in the backyard?
And then also because we knew that the auditorium in New York, this is in New York, it was a maximum of 400.
No, this one was big.
No, this is still the one day. So it was maximum 500 people. So we knew that we only had to manually make 500 of something. And at that point, it was like, hey, we can do that. So here, for example, the cover programs, you might look at that, and those are the logos. And
there was 4 different variables of the logo.
And you could say, well, they just printed it in different places on the program cover. But what that is, it's actually a laser cut grid of tiny little dots that the logo was sewn in, embroidered one by one into that grid. And we could place the logo anywhere, because the logos all had the same proportions, they all aligned at the same point. So
so we would put kids to sleep, and then I would put on my headphones. It's the year I discovered Mumford & Sons. They have the perfect tempo for this kind of thing, and just embroider for 2 or 3 hours each night until they were all done. The first one I think took me like 6 minutes. By the end, I could do each embroidered logo in under 2 minutes. You find ways to get speedier.
So then we were empowered by this, and then in 2014. Did you want to say something?
No, go ahead.
Okay. Then in 2014, what we did was we had created this pattern that had multiple versions of the brand new conference that always connected. So what we did is in the cover, we had this kind of like half cover with a sticker that you could place in different heights of the cover, and it would always read 2014 brand new conference. And all those stickers had to be placed by hand.
And those were that was 1 year where the volunteers the day before the conference actually spent several hours doing these.
So in 2015, after these experiences, we're ready. Like this year, 2015, we're gonna bring it.
Well, we were fed by the feedback really of people responding to all of these like handmade materials. We were fulfilling our dream of not seeing everything in the trash can and just people appreciating them.
But before we get into the 2015 conference materials, we want to talk about why we're here, why we're all here talking about for Hispanic Heritage Month. We are Mexican, so there's an influence there. And we couldn't, over the years.
It's not an aesthetic influence so much.
Because we don't design with Mexican colors. We don't have that folkloric influence. You don't see our design and think like, oh, Mexican, like that's not a thing. So we've sort of not struggled. We're like, what is it? What is the Mexican influence in our work? And what we arrived at is the ingenuity and the hard work of the Mexican people.
Yeah, it's the how we work, not what our work looks like.
Exactly. So what does the ingenuity in Mexico look like? It comes in different ways. Sometimes it's to make your life easier, have quick access to your phone through
sandal,
una chancla, la chancla para pegarle a la hija o a los hijos o al perro. The little I'll stop with that. Or if you want to make yourself a Cuba, with a rum and Coke, you can just
adjust your proportions.
Yeah. It also, ingenuity comes in transportation and chillaxing. You gotta
multitasking, multi-use.
Also, there's ingenuity in our security systems. You can see that the bochito
is not going anywhere.
Yeah, not going anywhere with that chain and lock. We take our home security pretty seriously. Here's a better picture. What some people do is they use broken glass on their fences or on their walls to prevent people from jumping over. No ADT, no security, no ring camera for sure. This is how you keep people the F
no
out.
fancy architect.
Yeah,
it's just.
So that's the ingenuity part. Then the hard work, the conversation gets a little bit more serious here in the sense that, the immigrant workers that come to the U.S. do a lot of hard work that not a lot of people here want to do.
It's the break your back kind of work that's hours and hours and long shifts, and it's not everybody's cup of tea.
Yeah, and I don't think, some of them might enjoy it, but I don't think anyone does it for fun. They just, they, us, everybody. We just have that work ethic where we do what needs to be done in the amount of time needed to get the job done. I think
just wanting to pay the bills and keep the family afloat, whatever it is needed.
And taking the conversation even a little bit more serious, not to be downers, but, we had the privilege to do this legally, but we saw the opportunity to take a professional, to be professionals in the U.S. It would give us a better future. It would have more potential in the U.S. than in Mexico for various reasons that we were able to come to the U.S. And other people come to the U.S. for that same reason. They see that their hard work, that their work ethic is going to give them so much more in return over in the U.S. to provide for their family, that they put themselves through this unfortunate situation that they have to cross the border illegally and come to the U.S. and do that kind of work. So, it's, I don't think anybody does it for fun, but we, us, them, we all know that our work ethic will pay off if we take those risks. Again, we had the benefit of doing it legally, but not everyone can. So a lot of power to everyone that does it. And even then,
ingenuity comes into play.
Mexicans will find a way to get in. This is an actual picture from Border Patrol, the organization there that found this guy hiding in the seat. So, ingenuity, hard work. Let's take a look at we're going to show you 5 examples of how ingenuity and hard work work for us. There's we like spicy stuff, and sometimes you want to find a way to spread that spiciness in a more efficient way. And we show a spray bottle in particular in this case because it will be relevant, and you'll see why.
Because 2015, remember?
Yeah, so 2015, we're ready. The conference is in New York. That year, we wanted to play up the idea of the graffiti in New York, the grittiness of New York.
And, most sensible designers will go about creating a Photoshop filter or, maybe spray painting. It's just going to spray painting a few things and scanning them. But as you start to see with the embroidery, we like to take things slightly deeper and into the crazy realm.
So as Bryony mentioned, this part is easy. You spray, you scan, you put it on the computer, you're done. But
when it comes to the program, we just couldn't do that.
Because we wanted each program to be spray painted by hand. Why? That's what we wanted.
Well, among other things, when you touch it, if it's printed, it doesn't feel like spray paint. Whereas if it's true spray paint, the texture is different. There's a grittiness to it, especially when you find a bug. But that's a whole other story. And it just made sense. That's how New York is spray painted. It is not spray painted by having the one thing everywhere.
It would have been easy to spray, scan, and send 6 different designs to the printer. That would have been the easy way out, and that's fine if that's how someone else does it. But what we found is that we have to do things the hard way. So how did we achieve this?
Let's just picture this in time. This is Texas. This is 4th of July weekend. It's 104 degrees somewhere around there.
It's cloudy, so it's not that bad right now. But you'll see a video where you can see the sun scorching our shoulders.
So we find systems. We always strive to be as efficient as possible so that we can move quickly through these. So we had several designs in several colored papers, and we just started going, creating these systems in templates that flip back and forth, and we would take turns spray painting, because every now and then your fingers really get tired. I got really good at using the left hand, the right hand, whatever, anything just to keep. I don't know how many cans did we end up using. I forget.
It was like 24 cans of black spray paint and like 30 of color, something like that. It was crazy. And as you can see, let me just back up. You can see that we're wearing masks, which are now
impossible to find.
Yeah, if we had done that approach this year, we would have had a hard time finding masks. But the good thing is that Mexico finds a way. This is a COVID mask in Mexico. That's the translation for anyone that didn't get the caption. We find a way to improvise, protect ourselves, but also enjoy our juice. I'm assuming it's juice. It's probably a Tecate. So in the end, what you get, as Bryony mentioned, is that grittiness. You can see the grittiness in the photo, and when you touch it, you get that texture. And then in this case, we also had a gold foil stamping on top of that, so there was like a cornucopia of tactile feeling in your hands.
Well, but we had to do a whole bunch of tests for the foil stamp, and it turned out that we needed to do the spray paint, then do a wood spray, and finish that off with Tresemme hairspray. No other hairspray would do. It had to be Tresemme, otherwise the foil would break.
So then you do have the 4 different designs that we wanted, but then you have 4 different color papers, and they're all different because the spray paint reacts different in all of the
And if
in
it
each
was
cover.
sunny, if it was cloudy, if it was windy, if it wasn't, it all changed a little bit.
For the tote bags, we also wanted to spray paint them, but that required a whole other discovery process on how to do it. But eventually what we found is that you had to do it more like almost like a sock, or like a t-shirt, yeah, so that you would protect the back.
It would only get the paint on the one side. And then we also found paracord that would match the neon colors that we were using. So we ended up changing all of the ribbons that were stock from the bags.
I'm just going to rewind. You're going to see the Bryony's shoulder show up here. Like, you look at that. Like, that's 105-degree sun hitting you all day long.
And this is also a point where by now the neighbors are aware of what's happening, and they're like, should we send pizzas or do you want to send your kids over? Because they've probably been watching TV all day.
So again, matching that, the spray paint with, in this case, gold silk screen. The lanyards, we started getting more ambitious with the lanyards. This one were made of wood. They were spray painted, a gold sticker on them. Oh, and as a disclaimer, just because we just heard them, there's 4 dogs on the floor directly above us and 2 kids. So at some point, you'll probably hear one of them bark or cry. Who knows which one is which, but they're up there. All right.
Moving right along because we're starting to.
All right. Oh, yeah. All right. So.
And this was a year where really social media exploded for us as a way of communicating what the brand new conference was all about and what we were doing with all of these materials. As you can see, Instagram just went crazy, and we went with it because, among other things, we do not advertise a brand new conference. It is just word of mouth and whatever you hear on the blog. But this became we're here, you're not here, you're missing out, and you don't have these things.
So that gave us it empowered us more to keep going at it.
Empowered us and just nudged us. Yeah. It's like this little thing that jabs us. Is like, okay, what are we going to do next?
So ingenuity is not always funny. It can sometimes be beautiful with mundane things like a snow cone. This isn't a fancy machine that makes perfect ice. This is a guy scraping ice one by one. And then he could just throw the
syrup on top.
But no, he's making this beautiful experience, by a simple twirl. And there's a crowd gathered in that video.
Nobody minds the wait. Yeah. Everybody's patiently waiting for theirs because it is a process. It is a dance. And it's worth the wait.
So that's something that we wanted to do when we went to Nashville, and I'll show you sort of the mundane object in the next few slides. But the inspiration for the conference had to do with country music, which plays a big role in Nashville, and the suits worn by country singers that have all this kind of
embroidery and stitching and beautiful patterns and references to nature.
So we had that element going, and then we're like, can we somehow make the lanyards out of actual vinyl records? So the first test that we did was, can we print on them? So as you can see there, they left their imprint, Industry Print Shop in Austin, Texas.
We worked with them a lot, and so we basically sent them a record and we said, can you print on this? And so they used whatever sample they had, and they started testing various inks, and they found the one that would work, that would require them to keep all of their doors open again. By now it's August, right?
Yeah. So they were like, all right, we can print on this, so let's go out and buy a bunch of
about 400 of them,
400 vinyl discs, and this is sort of the mundane object that is the metaphor for the snow cone, if you will. That's our collection of used
we really tried to make sure that they were really crappy bad, records.
And then we had to figure out what is the layout on the record that would allow us to make the least amount of cuts possible.
Because it's really hard to cut vinyl.
So then we figured that out. We printed them, and then came the production. So here, Bryony is not cutting all the way through, but just scoring them because it's impossible to cut all the way through.
It requires 3 scores with a very big blade.
And once they're scored, then I would snap them piece by piece.
I need his strong fingers.
To just go
every now and then they would break the wrong way, so we had to have extras for this process.
And then once we had each piece, then we had to drill a hole so that you could put a little lanyard, an actual lanyard.
Now, I mentioned earlier that we're really always looking for the most efficient way, and you realize you have complete and absolute trust in somebody else when you're just jabbing your hand with something underneath the drill without even looking, just moving as quickly and swiftly as you can.
And me going with a drill next to those fingers. A little bit more Mexican ingenuity than music.
Jug.
A little jog. This is totally a gratuitous Mexican ingenuity, but it's music related. And so we had designed all these patterns based on the country singer suits patterns, 4 different colors. We like making multiple colors. It's fun, and we can.
Well, and it's fun for the audience to be like, oh, I got green. You have butterflies. I have something else, and it becomes an icebreaker for people who are just meeting.
And then in this close up, you can see the texture of that record. Like that's something that you cannot get any other way. And then the smoothness of the silk screen on it. So that's what we're always going for, that juxtaposition of textures.
And then we had a very large stage. As the conference kind of grows and the venues get bigger, the stage all of a sudden is a whole lot of space for a speaker and a podium. So these are 4 feet tall, and we wanted to create that sense of the costumes again. So we went old school for these, and it took us about 4 months to make all of these letters, or I should say. And you can see there we have the stove and the letter. So sometimes it was dinner or working on the letter, but usually it meant after dinner. Again, once the kids were off to bed, I would work for 2 or 3 hours tracing and painting all of these by hand. And eventually the eraser of that pencil was the perfect size for these little dots that would emulate the rhinestones. And we lived with these around our bedroom because we didn't have any other place to put them for several months.
And this also puts their size into perspective. That's a king size bed with 4 big ass letters next to it. So we wanted that rhinestone effect, and we're like, how are we gonna do this?
So we found these little LED lights that would blink, and we also obsessed over putting a little film of clear nail polish, a line of Sharpie, anything to work on that intensity and the speed of.
And they're basically Christmas tree lights.
Yeah.
And as you can see in the back, they're just kind of like nasty. But when you have them on stage, we were able to set them on a timer where they would pulse and be a slow, they would be randomly on and off. And it really looked like little sparkles on the stage as if they were the rhinestones of the suits. All right. Number 3, sometimes your mirror breaks and you don't have time or the money to fix it, so you get that. And mirror here is because we used a lot of reflective materials because we did the event in Chicago.
We went back to the same venue that faces the bean.
Anish Kapoor's The Cloud Gate, which is what we love about it is its reflectiveness and how it distorts everything around it. So we thought, can we bring that into the identity somehow? And again, the first part, like doing the digital aspect, is sort of easy in the sense that, you can render this on a computer, you make animations, looks great. But then how do you translate that same effect into actual physical objects like this, like the tote bags that have, they do have stills from those 3D animations, silk screen on mirrored fabric.
And I should say that also that this year we chose to rely a little bit more on vendors because we were in the process of leaving Austin and moving somewhere. We didn't know where and when or how that was going to play off. So we didn't want to depend too heavily on our making stuff in the middle of moving.
So those are the bags. And you can see they're very, very reflective. And we'll show you a video that shows how reflective they are. The covers of the program were on a reflective paper. They were debossed with the design and silk screened as well. And they just had, this kind of like really nice texture. And this is how reflective they are, kind of like in real life. And they provide that effect of the beam where it distorts reality a little bit. Same thing with the bag. They were pretty damn reflective. So for the lanyards, so we had two different reflective materials. We had the material of the paper for the cover, this fabric for the bags, and we needed something else for the lanyards.
So we ended up finding these little Mylar bags that you use for candies. But how to get, the message on them, that's where we started testing. Do we do stamp? Do we do silk screen? Do we do, I think the middle one is a Tattly, all kinds of different things, but nothing was quite working. And any silk screener that we asked, even industry, said, no way, that's too small, too messy, too reflective, it's not going to work. And basically, anybody can make it work if they really want it, but it is not cost effective. And it was not a good job to take in-house for anybody. So we did the next sensible thing, which is to order a silk screen kit and learn how to silk screen, because we figured, if nobody else is going to do it for us and this is what we want, this is what we're going to do. We'll just figure it out.
We had purchased silk screen printing many times, so we figured, we understand it, so maybe we can do it. We also went out and bought a drying rack that.
Yeah, because the one that I had made for all of the spray paint did not move.
So now here we're in Bloomington. We have a garage, kind of like a nice big space. You can see my lawnmower there on the side. So this is our silk screen setup. If anybody hears a silk screen printer, they're probably going like, what what the F is going on here? But yeah, it's a very rackety system, and but we're feeling good. We're silk screening. The ink is transferring.
It's staying on.
It's staying on. And we're like, oh, look at that big stack that we made. But it turned out that 65% of what we had done was just shit. It looked terrible.
Most of what happened was that purple and green table that you saw moved just the tiniest bit every time we used the squeegee. So things were just a little off and a little bit blurry in a way.
So this was like 2 weeks before the conference, and that second to next last weekend, we're like, all right, we need to print again, apply what we learned, do it better. This is how it looks. So it's just like really bad fidelity.
Once it dried, it was just not good.
So we tried again, and we succeeded. It looked great. I think if we had paid someone to do it, we'd be like, it's sort of okay, but hey, we did it. Like, we actually managed to get a half-tone texture on a really slippery metallic
all
material.
of the things they tell you not to do when you're beginning to silk screen.
And then again, like, people took photos on Instagram. That was great. But the best part about it this year is that because we were so close to the bean, is that everybody went and took pictures with the reflective things on the reflective bean. And that is just like, that's like the ultimate
nod of appreciation. Yeah.
All right. Number 4. This one, a nod to all of our hardworking concrete workers out there. Sometimes we need to get concrete from one floor to the other. And what's great about this is that it's a big PVC tube, so they can just move it back and forth to the sides, have a constant flow of concrete. This is just beautiful. It's an art that we're seeing here.
Engineering at its best.
So why are we showing you concrete? Because that's what we did for 2018.
We went back to New York, the concrete jungle. And now that we had all this space, we could actually order 2,000 pounds of concrete.
So one of the reasons why we ended up with the concrete jungle, or how we rationalized the concrete, was like, New York is the concrete jungle. What makes New York the concrete jungle is the buildings. What makes those buildings interesting is the type on those buildings. That's on some of those buildings that has inscriptions that are receded into the concrete. So that's what we wanted to achieve.
And also the challenge of turning a cliche into something beautiful and unexpected.
So we started experimenting with molds and, trying to see if we could get a piece of concrete to stick to a book.
Can you make it thin enough that it's not, a brick instead of a slab?
Can we make something small for the lanyards? How thin is too thin? How thick is too thick?
How can you get those letters recessed?
And after a lot of trial and error, this is sort of the summary of the process, where we had 9 molds for the cover.
No. 16. Okay. And actually, outsourced the molds, but they came back crappy, so we ended up doing them ourselves. We figured out how to do the silicone, how to cure it. We used our laser cutter to create the positives. Excuse me. You can keep going with these. And then we wanted to create these little concrete paperweights. Why? Just because. Because, you know, it came up as an idea and we didn't question it. But nobody would do a 3D recessed letter mold for us. So we figured out how to do that as well, and we created our own. And slowly but surely, over 6 months, creating concrete or working on the concrete for 3 hours a day, we managed to get about 4,000 pieces of concrete produced.
Because you had to let it dry, and we only had so many molds, so you had
and so much space.
Yeah. So those are all the pre-made, all the concrete that we made before we put it to use. And then how do you get it on things? So these are the lanyards, and there's no magic way. There's no secret to it other than you put glue on the piece, you put the piece on the other thing, and then you start stacking it. You go one by one, one after the other.
Well, we did get to experiment with all kinds of glues. I think we tested 18 different kinds of glues and ended up with vinyl flooring glue as being the most consistent.
Yeah, you can see here, like, there's again, like, there's no assembly line other than me and Bryony. We figure out how to do it. What is the most efficient way? How can we make each of our tasks go as fast as possible? And one way to do that is to just speed up the video. But in the end, what you have is, this really amazing range of the concrete reacting to the environment.
You have a mold. They should all be, in theory, the same. But because concrete is quite finicky, if it's cold, if it's humid, if any weather makes changes in the color and the texture of the concrete, no matter how precise you are with your measurements.
And then you had these fantastic air bubbles that were they just gave it so much texture, and you never knew when they were going to come up. Sometimes they would be like right next to a letter, and they would break up the letter a little bit.
We could have gotten a vibrating table that takes care of all of those little bubbles, but we chose not to. We wanted that texture, those imperfections to come through.
And those are the name badges. And again, they're all a little bit different, different grays, different results. You can see a chipped letter there. And that's cool. That's what we wanted, to have that.
That's the New York grittiness that then could translate to this pristine design.
And then those are all the little cubes that we made. So people really enjoy that. All right.
And nobody really complained about the weight of all of these things.
They were heavy. Then the last one that we're going to show you is for last year. And then this is about how you can take something that you take for granted, but could be given another meaning. So let's just watch this video for a second.
No, pues, quédate atrás. Sácate una manguera. ¿Qué es eso, Rupo? ¿Qué traes, pues? Gasolina. Ah, pinche viejo mañoso.
So, we find a way to make our lives better, to make our life richer. Take something that's so mundane like that
detergent
gas container, and make it into a cooler for beer, which is fantastic. So how does that relate to Las Vegas? Not a lot, but we'll get to how it relates.
So first, let's explain that we're going to Vegas for our 10-year anniversary of the conference.
Yeah.
So we figured we would really step out of our comfort zone and go somewhere we never expected we would go, and makes us in a way very uncomfortable because it's not our scene.
Yeah. And we know that it's 8:28. We have about 10 minutes left of the presentation, but we'll power through it. So one of the best thing about Las Vegas for designers are the neon signs, and we're struggling how do we get something like this, something as beautiful as this, into a program, into lanyards, into a tote bag.
And that energy, I mean, you stand in the street in Vegas and there's an energy around you that we needed to translate to print.
So how do you get that on-off of the neon lights going on and off all around you? How do you get that into print? And then this is the only sample of lenticular GIF that I could find online. It happens to be Dancing with Jesus. I think it's a pretty effective example. So we thought, that's something that allows you to switch and have that sense of motion and animation and on and off with two images at once. So this is the mundane thing that you don't think of lenticular printing as something that can be designy. It's usually a kind of like a crappy promo they just throw out,
or a postcard with a cityscape kind of thing.
So in order to achieve the effect, we had to go to Las Vegas and get up close and personal with those neon signs
all night long.
All night long. This has to happen at night, and because we're coming from Eastern time zone, this is happening 3 hours later for my
I stayed
body
home.
cycle.
I called this one.
In part because I went like on the picture on the left. I'm on a parking lot on the 4th floor. There's no one there. It's scary. Bryony shouldn't be doing that at that time of the alone by herself. So I rented a big ass lens so that I could get as close as possible to the light bulbs to get as many pictures as possible.
A lot.
Yeah, so we got a lot of pictures. We narrowed those down to couples of images that had an on and an off, or an A and a B. And that allowed us to, once you align them nicely in Photoshop, you could have that really nice on-off situation with different neon signs.
And so we also tried to play with the colors and the depth of each photo. Some of them were a lot more detailed. You can see the light bulbs where others you can't. And it just create a bit of an abstract composition out of all of these.
And then bringing in we work with BNConf all the time because that's our handle on Instagram. That's the brand new conference, BNConf. So we're always trying to find how do we build those 6 letters into the identity. In this case, it was a matter of juxtaposing, shifting the background of one with the foreground of the other, and you have that sensation of being in Las Vegas, of having many things coming at you at once. So again, sort of easy to do this digitally. You just spend some time online and get it done. Not online, on your computer. So how do we actually get that onto
the printed materials?
On the printed materials. So what we did after a lot of trial and error, a lot of figuring out with the printer, Classic in Chicago, was we ended up doing these die-cut letters that had the 12 different images so that you could pop them and then change them one with the other, so you can see the close-up there.
Because the idea was to have each cover, the BNConf, 6 letters, 6 backgrounds, all be different. So you would have 12 different images on each cover.
So the first step was to separate the letters from the backgrounds, and those are all the 12 different designs.
And the counters.
Then these are the insides in different, separated as well. And this is the process, the first part of the process, which is selecting randomly the backgrounds first.
And then just start making puzzles so that each cover is slightly different. Mm-hmm. And then actually sticking them onto the cover. Again, we always come up with little systems that help us move as quickly as possible.
And then once you have those in place, then you start mixing and matching the insides so that, again, they're all different. And then you have to stick those inside. You have to, and then the counters. It was painful, long hours of this.
And we were very tight in the deadline because the lenticular did take longer than we had anticipated to produce.
But then again, like the end result always, at least for us, it justifies the means. Like we see this, like, yes, it was worth it. Every second that we were cursing our decision to do this, it pays off when you see the result.
And when we're working, and we've been doing it for 10 hours and we're cussing while laughing at the same time, because we know we put ourselves in this situation. We chose it. We can't really complain about it, and we thrive in it.
And then our oldest daughter, who's really smart, she figured out the possible combinations if you took all 12 designs and mixed them together. So
we're gonna
it's
trust
a number
that she got the right number.
Yeah. And then this is the effect once you see it in person, that as you're flipping open the cover, those lights change. They turn on and off.
And you could compare with the people next to you. What images do you have? What are all the differences?
And even the tactility, even if you don't see the thing changing, when you touch it, because lenticular has those ridges, you can feel it. And if you run your nail through it, it will make a nice, funny sound. For the name badges, it was a little bit more of an abstract design.
It was more about walking down the street, and a way of, because we couldn't really do the letters super tiny for the badges.
It was almost like a Russian doll kind of nesting of different frames that you'll eventually see the results. But again, it's just the meticulousness of having to align all of those together. Those are all the ones
that are assembled.
Mm-hmm. And then again, then you have to put those on the lanyards.
The names.
And then these are all the different designs, and you can see that you get those nice textures, different designs.
And what's funny is that this is the first year since, I think, the second year that we chose to buy the lanyards. We were like, okay, we have a lot going on. Let's just order the lanyards. We found what we wanted, and they messed that up. So we ended up having to make the lanyards like a week before the conference.
And then finally, very quickly, we'll talk about the letters that we did for the stage, which are
our most ambitious. I mean, I thought the Nashville letters were our most ambitious, but once we got to these, how to create this neon effect and have these 3D letters stand up. And the trickiest part is that no materials that are flammable are allowed on any stage. So you cannot use wood, for example, or fabric or anything like that. So we built these out of acrylic. We have a laser cutter here. So using techniques of architecture modeling from when I helped my brother when he was in architecture school, making these tiny little 1/8 inch pieces of acrylic to create curves, and using this neon light that we found, or neon-like, I would say. And then we were able to program them so that they would light on and off. Like the inside and the outside would take turns being on and off at different speeds. So very subtly, they were playing in the background.
So there's a whole other set of 12 videos about making of the letters, but this is just a quick taste of what it took to make those letters happen in real life. And this was mostly Bryony. I said, "Can I help you?" She's like, "No, please don't. Like, you'll mess something up." But yeah, so that is our approach to the conference. Pretty much everything is hand-done, hand-assembled in some way. We try to find ways to bring new materials that perhaps we haven't worked with, but we'll find a way. We'll be ingenious in how we approach it.
And to an extent, nothing goes to waste, because by now there's a scramble always at the end of the conference from people wanting to take the letters home, and so any banners or things like that we end up making always go home with someone.
All right. So to bring it all home, to close this, our presentation and Hispanic Heritage Month for AIGA Unidos, here are three key things that you can take away from this, no matter where you're from, whether you're from Venezuela, Mexico, even in the U.S., doesn't matter. Yeah. Here's things that matter to us. The first one is teamwork, which is the cheesiest thing you'll ever hear me say. Because we actually don't believe in collaboration. We don't collaborate with anyone because we work together so well. So it's really about finding that other person or other group of people, and you may love to collaborate. That's great. We just don't. And figuring out how can you work together to get the best out of each other and make things happen. The second thing is resourcefulness. So it really, I'll show the video first that I found. So, how you may not have the best machinery, we may not be able to afford it, but we'll find a way to dust our crops one way or another. There they go.
Yeah, I mean, just the fact of trying to use materials in an unexpected way speaks to that resourcefulness, and just finding ways of producing all of these things ourselves versus outsourcing everything at great expense and most likely not the same results.
Yeah, so even if you don't have the biggest budget or the access to the best equipment, what can you use within your budget, within your reach, within your means of, within your abilities, to do something unique. And we all have that ability, and we all have access to anything, as limited as that may be. We have access to stuff that we can transform into new things.
Yeah, you just have to step out of your comfort zone and the traditional way of making things.
And the last thing, pride. Be proud of where you come from. Don't hide it. Like, I have an accent, and when I first moved to the US, I was super conscious of my accent and trying to speak with an American accent, and it just sounded more horrible. At some point, I just said, fuck it. This is how I speak. Either you like it or you don't. And most people do, because it's cute. It's charming. But, it took me a while to get comfortable with that. And I think it's all about having pride in where you come from, your background, your history, and putting that to work.
And taking pride in what you put out into the world.
And remember that as immigrants,
we get the job done.
And that is it for us. So, muchas gracias. Thank you very much. We'll close the sharing screen because this is the awkward part of the presentation.
I don't know if we're gonna have Q&A or not at this point. I know we ran a little.
Hello, am I back? There, I'm back on screen.
All right.
Awesome. Thank you so much. That was great. You must have like some crazy hand skills by now. Just nonstop. Yeah. So I want to thank everyone for joining us. And luckily, they said they are able to stay up late tonight, so we can handle some Q&A. One of the things that I guess was going throughout your presentation was how personal you get, like with all the conference swag. What about getting personal with critiquing? Victor Davila had a question. When critiquing work on brand new from people what has the reaction been?
Well, I don't know what the reaction is when I critique someone's work that I know, but for me, it can be one of the most excruciating parts of critiquing work. At the beginning, it was fine because I didn't know that many people. But now that I know so many of the people whose work I critique, they've been to our conference. We've been in conferences together, whatever it is. So it becomes harder, especially when it's a pentagram project. Like, how do I critique my previous boss's work when he gave me so much, and now here I am, like, I don't like your kerning. Like, that's not cool. So I just try to be as objective as possible so that there's no subjectivity at play. I mean, yes, there is, but I try to provide logic to it in a way that, like, all right, well, that's how he thinks, that's fine. But yeah, it's a challenge.
So Jen asks, if AIGA Unidos wanted to put together an in-person conference, which, stay tuned, what is the hardest part other than maxing credit cards of the conference, and what is the easiest in putting it together? Is there anything you wish you knew now than from the first conference? Assuming the other way.
I would say the hardest, and we don't struggle with it as much because of our personalities and how we work together, but keeping the schedule running on schedule is the biggest challenge that we see in conferences all across, no matter how big or small they are. The easiest,
I think the easiest is which is the hardest, is once you have made everything happen, once the show starts, you have to make sure that you enjoy yourself. Which I think that is the hardest part, because you always think, like, I have to be on and thinking about the 100 different things that could be going wrong. But at the same time, I put this event together, I want to enjoy it. And I think now we found a way to do both. So that's not really the easiest, but it's, that's one of the things that I would, because I see a lot of conference organizers that are just running like crazy in the background, and they don't take a moment to just be like, holy, like, we put this together. Like, take a moment to sit down, take it in, and enjoy it. But then beyond that, it really is about, organization. It's all about keeping an Excel file of the stuff that you need, who's responsible for it, when do you need it by, and making sure that you hit those deadlines.
Wonderful. Now, Jessica Vidal, she asks, what kind/size of staff do you have to put on the conference? Are they contracted just for that event, or do you hire a professional conference service?
It's just the two of us. And then the day before, we meet on average 17 volunteers that help us for the 3 days. And that's it.
But yeah, I mean, Bryony handles the front of the house. So she's in charge of registration, sponsorship, wellness. And then I'm in charge of all the technical aspects. We do not have a technical director. If a presentation breaks down, I run on stage and fix it. If someone's microphone is out of place, I go up and arrange it. We're also the hosts of the conference. So we go up and down the stage to introduce speakers.
And do the Q&As.
So we are a two-person operation that has survived their marriage and managed to make it work. But, so what that proves is that it can be done. I think, I wouldn't say anyone can do a conference, but it's something that is very achievable if you are well organized and know what to do when, and not freak out when things go wrong, because something will go wrong.
Yeah, invariably something will go wrong. But for us, I know how he's going to react to whatever problem I face, so I can I don't even have to consult or check. And just the fact that it's the two of us, we have all the information. So any problems or any issues that come up, we can make the decision right away. We don't need to reach out and be like, oh, have you talked to whomever about this? No, we can solve it right away. It's up to us. And we find that a lot more efficient and easier.
Awesome. So we have a question from Jan Ballard regarding the conference takeaways. What materials will you not work with again? And I'm going to add also, what materials do you want to work in the future with?
Well, one thing that we try to do is to not repeat ourselves. So we would never use concrete again. We would never do
lenticular or spray paint or anything like that. Those are done.
But like, for example, for Nashville, we tried embroidery, and it's something that we still want to do, but we just couldn't master the equipment or the software for it.
In the time frame that we had.
Yeah. So that's still something that we might want to try at some point.
There's some fake leathers that are interesting for details. I wouldn't say, I would base an entire identity on this fake leather, but there's some things that we found through that embroidery as far as material goes. Yeah, at this point, we really kind of tie it to the city where we're hosting the event. So we don't really think ahead as to what materials we want to work with. It's more, okay, where are we hosting? Okay, then let that inform the identity.
And to put it in perspective, like this year when we were supposed to go to Austin, we started having initial conversations before we had to postpone it due to COVID. But let's just say tortilla chips came into the conversation. So like, we're always thinking about what is something no one would use, what can we do with it that would be memorable. So, it still remains to be seen if what can we do with tortilla chips. Maybe we'll find out in 2021.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yes. So yeah, we're all taking notes. Like you mentioned, conferences hopefully are in our future. And so we're dropping in the AIGA Unidos survey in the chat just to let everyone know you have to leave. Go ahead and click on that link and check out the survey. But earlier you mentioned marriage and working together all the time. So Jesse the Bison said, or asked, I admire the life you both built and the contribution you've made to the design industry. What makes your relationship so successful as both business partners and eternal lovebirds?
All right, go for it.
Well, I think the key that we found early on, not even by trying, was that we realized that we're in this for the same reason, which is to survive, which is to put money on the table, which is to raise our kids, which is to pay our mortgage. And the moment we start
working towards that same goal, it doesn't matter how we get there, as long as we're striving together, kind of thing.
Yeah, so kind of like realizing that, we have the same goal in mind, let's figure out a way. And it's not even figuring out, it's just like, let's avoid all the things that are going to distract you, that are going to get in the way of you getting there, because it's really not worth it. I mean, we literally don't fight, which is insane. Like, we've never had a fight where we go like, I hate you, get out of my life. Like, that has never happened. The most upset we get with each other is if we have to work with each other's InDesign files. Like, that is just like, I cannot go into a Bryony InDesign file and be happy, you know? And she goes into my file like, why are your style sheets like this? Like, because I want it like that. Okay, deal with it. But that's the extent of it, because I think once you realize that you're in it together and you want to stay in it together, because you have kids, you have dogs, you know, there's no point in fighting with each other.
No. And we also, divide and conquer. Yes, we're, again, striving for that efficiency. So we have tasks that belong to each. And then how can I support him in his tasks, and how can he support me in my tasks? And that's really how we just keep on going.
And we like each other. Like, so that works. We have that going for ourselves.
Good one. Little detallito. Let's see. So Victor asks, are you able to get into as much design detail with your client as you do with the conferences?
No, because
nobody has the budget
for
that level of intensity. I mean, to stay up, 3-4 hours every night after kids have gone to bed, nobody can pay me enough for that.
And it's not that we're fancy and we deserve that money. It's just like, if we were to quantify the hours that we put into that work, it would break every budget imaginable. Like, even for us, like, the return on investment in the hours is lost. Like, we literally spend any money that we get, we overspend it in hours. But the return on investment in the pride and seeing other people's reactions, that's where we get paid. I mean, we get paid, but that's where the real value comes in. So, and with client, this is personal. Like, this is our conference. It has our name on it. When you have a client, it's different. The relationship to that work is very different.
It's their baby, not ours. And we also need to respect those boundaries. We can't, go all in, because you can actually overwhelm a client, and it can be too much if you're too intense.
Agreed. So we have a question from Edwin. He's asking, so a logo I designed got featured on Brand New, then got completely roasted by other designers in the comments. How do you feel about those hilarious audience critiques? Do you have a funny story about those comments?
I don't think there's any, there's a lot of comments out there, and I think there's a little bit of a misconception or misperception about the comments that they're just sort of useless, in that, it's just like an angry designer being angry and being jealous and whatever. Like, but no, that's how designers speak. Like, if you put 5 designers at a bar talking about the latest logo from, whoever, Land or Will Fall in Pentagram, they're like, oh, that sucks. Oh, I could have done better. Like, give me another beer, whatever it is. That's how we talk. Like, we don't write essays about design. We react. So I think it's sort of not important, but it's, those comments shouldn't be taken as seriously sometimes, or, let it, because a lot of designers really take it personally. So you have to take it with a grain of salt, that it's just people's reactions. But yeah, no funny stories. I think there's so many comments that I have no idea who those people are. I mean, I know them by their handle, but I don't know them in real life. It's just, I think it's great. I think it's just another way of seeing how your work is being appreciated out of context, in a way. So, yeah, a non-answer to a tough answer, to a tough question.
So I have a question here from Victor. And I think this relates specifically to the stage letters in Nashville. Where are those letters now?
6 different homes.
You just give them away to like attendees, friends. Awesome.
Yes. We can't get attached to our own things. And, once we get there and we use them, bringing everything home, as you saw, I mean, those were around our bedroom. By then, I really didn't want to see them anymore in my house. And it feels good to give them away and have somebody else enjoy them, because we have to move on to the next brand in the next year. And I'd much rather see them in other people's homes.
So we have a question with a preface from Jesse the Bison. Our foreign ingenuity is a skill that cannot be taught. It's instinctual problem solving that greatly benefits how we as creatives approach our work. As descendants of people who fought invaders of our lands, I feel that problem solving ability is very much linked to surviving. Our work has to be beyond exceptional. Did you feel that you had to work harder than native US born citizens?
I would say yes. Yeah, but I think you have something to prove. You have to prove that you belong, that,
that you're worthy of being there.
And especially because when we first moved, we were on a work visa. So that work visa depends on a job. So you need to make yourself pretty much
indispensable
to keep that visa. So yeah, you can't really slack and be like, I'll just get another job, or I'll just work at McDonald's or Starbucks, because you can't. Like, you need to be sponsored. So yeah, so I think maybe not so subconsciously, you do have to always be on your toes. Like, even when we got our green card, which gives you a little bit more security, you still feel like I have to do everything I can to hold on to that green card. And I guess now that we've been citizens for like 5-6 years, like, we don't want to lose it. I think you can, but maybe like, oh, those guys are, they're just coasting on, whatever they're doing. Like, let's take that back. So yeah, I think there's always that sense that you have to prove yourself, but we're very competitive. And I don't know where that comes from. Maybe it is cultural, maybe not. But we just want to, if not succeed, we just want to do something that people enjoy and do it in a way that is memorable.
And just prove that, things can be done when you think they cannot be done.
I'm gonna jump in. Sorry, we had a couple of duplicate questions, so I was sorting them through. So Jesse asked, did you have to defend your career choice with your families? As one of the best producers of design conferences that come from a culture of hardworking people, do your relatives think you have real jobs? What kind of support did you have in that regard?
All right, you go first.
All right, so
yours is more interesting.
I'll try to make it super quick. So my dad inherited my granddad's business, which was just a business selling pharmaceutical products. He didn't like it. He studied mathematics and was very much into computers. When I was in high school, he got one of the first Macintosh computers, because he liked computers. He was like, "Oh, this Adobe Illustrator 88, which that was its name at the time. This is cool. Like, you can make things with it." And then he's like, "What does that mean?" Okay, so he found out that is graphic design. And then he was like, "Okay, now I want to go back to college at age, I think it was like 45, 48, and I'm going to study graphic design while I also go do my job
and like have teenage sons."
Yeah. So when I was in high school, I saw my dad going to college for graphic design. He got into it. He started buying magazines, subscribing to design magazines, buying books. He knew who Pentagram was before I knew who Pentagram was. I was a really shitty high school student, and when I saw what he was doing, I was like, "Hey, I can do that." Like,
there's no testing.
Yeah. So I went into graphic design because of my dad, pretty much. So he's always loved what I do. He understands what I do. When I told him that I was going to go work at Pentagram, he literally freaked out on the phone. He's like, "Oh my God, what? You're going to work for Pentagram?" Like, he knew And my mom is a writer, so kind of just similar creative. So yeah, so they've always known, they've been supportive. They read the blog, they've gone to our conferences. So extremely supportive, extremely understanding of what we do.
In my case, my mother's a fine artist, my dad's a lawyer turned writer, and they've always been very supportive of anything that's creative. My dad does call me an arte grafiquera. He doesn't quite always remember the whole graphic design part, which is hilarious after 20 years or so. But the support has always been there just to be creative, and the entrepreneurial side of our business has always been a big thing for them.
Good. Okay, so we have two questions that are that have the same theme. So I'll read them both. Elizabeth asks, what was your greatest failure that you had to turn into a success? And Mia asks, I'm really inspired by the ingenuity, work ethic, and courage that you both have to take on so many ambitious and awesome projects. Were there any moments of uncertainty or insecurity about if something would work out or if you would be able to work it out? What empowered you to keep going and have faith in the process and yourselves during those moments?
That's a deep question. Yeah. Do you have something specific you want to?
I mean, I wouldn't call it the failure itself, but just that moment when we decided to launch the brand new conference, that basically risking our livelihood, all of our savings. We had 1.5 babies at that point. By the time the conference came around, we had the second kid. So that transition from going from having client work 24/7 to all of a sudden putting everything on the line for this one event that if it failed, it really meant going back to the drawing board and figuring out what we were going to do with our lives, would speak to that.
Yeah, I think it's kind of like on a smaller scale or level. It's just like every single design decision or production decision that we make, everything is questionable. We never know if it's going to work until we try it. So a lot of it is like, yes, we might fail, and a lot of the process, a lot of the little research and development that we do, a lot of it are failures, and you look at it like, this is going to go nowhere. So it's a matter of like keep trying until you get it right. If you have a vision in your mind, and then having the flexibility to adapt, to say, all right, make compromises here and there, but still get to a good product. So I think having that willingness to keep exploring and testing and prototyping, that's key.
And the objectivity of saying this part works, this part doesn't, and not getting attached to this one idea or one way of getting it done, but allowing that flexibility.
And then just to sort of quickly talk about kind of like the recent, this year, because at one point we were like, holy shit, we're in trouble. Like, back in March, we were like, we are royally screwed, because our whole business plan for 2020 was we had 9 events lined up for 2020.
Our first European tour.
So we had a brand new conference, and then first round, which is another event that we had been doing for 2 years. So all of our energy, all of our budget, all of our, way of life was based around those 9 events. And all of a sudden, we have nothing. So there was a period of time where we're like, we're not going to make money this year. Like, there's nothing. We had no clients because we had not looked for any, because we had
9 events.
9 events. We figured like that's going to, keep us busy, and that's going to bring the money in. So yeah, there was a moment where like, oh, we screwed up by putting all of our eggs in one basket. That basket was pretty good for a while. So yeah, there's those moments of that where like, what do I do? What have I done? And then it's just a matter of, all right, the resourcefulness. So what do we have at our disposal that we can make work for us? So that's when we switch the the blog, which has been free for 14 years, into a subscription model, it was a hard decision, but we were like, this is what we need to do. This is the decision that we need to make now to save the year, to take us at least into 2021, and then
and
we'll
to be
see.
able to continue doing this, because the other alternative was to shut down everything and go find a job.
Yeah.
And then, you know, that's the end of that passion project, and we didn't want that.
So again, there was that big moment of doubt. Like, what do we do? Like, you know, after being so, you know, successful with that conference for 5-6 years, all of a sudden that just gets swept from under you. Like, what do you do? And that's where you have to figure out, all right, what can I do? Like, outside forces have a role, but what is the one decision that I can take to get out of this? So, you know.
And not get attached to something so deeply that we're like, okay, then let's make them all virtual and make this and this and that. No, let's take a breather. Let's figure, you know, we cannot recreate that same event online. You know, there's no concrete pieces. There's not all of these things that make our event special and different from all the others. So instead of trying to just modify, it's hit the pause button and put that aside and move on to something else. And, you know, when the time comes that we can bring the conferences back, then we will. But in their as close to their original form as possible, because we didn't want to just make it work and see what happens.
Awesome. I think that's the end of our questions. Thank you so much for everyone joining us, and especially to y'all. That was awesome presentation.